So, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Gordon and Phil's chatting. And today we're going to be talking about the changing your mindset and creating winning habits that are going to help you drive and achieve more success. So, Phil, do you want to give us a little bit of your thinking around some of the good and bad habits that we can get into that can impact our performance?
Yeah, I think let's talk about bad habits. I'll speak about my own actually. Having been a trainer for a number of different organizations, what I found is my habits have hindered my ability to deliver what I might consider to be exceptional, consistent training courses. Whilst you can get good feedback from the courses, I think if you've got high standards, it's very easy to also be self-critical and judgmental, which is a pattern in itself. It's right to, but equally, I might say that people in management, leadership, sales roles, where performance is constantly being measured, unless you've got the right kind of mindset, then typically you're not going to deliver against expectation. So I guess when we start talking about positive mindset, what do we actually mean by positive mindset? Is there such a thing? And as an NLP coach and somebody who works with people in positions of responsibility and performance delivery, I might argue that actually there is no such thing as a positive mindset.
Would you?
What there is
Would you
there
agree?
is a Sorry, Gordon, I actually missed that.
Would you agree that there's such a thing as
a?
Would you agree that there's such a thing as a negative mindset?
I think what it is, when we start talking about positive mindset, if we strip that down, first and foremost, what do we mean by positive? Well, what we mean by positive is a more favorable way. Approval, agreement, So, and then we've got the word mindset, which I've never particularly warmed to that word purely and simply because I'm not convinced by the whole notion of set.
Yeah.
We can often find when we get new information, new facts, that can often shift a set mind. So what do we mean by that?
But without that new information, you could have a mindset that's stuck with a negative belief. You might be of the opinion that I can't do this based on the information that you've got. And then if you've got that mindset of I can't do it, then it's going to be difficult for you to attempt it with any real degree of positivity or confidence that you're going to be successful, which can actually then become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, and reinforce the concept of, let's say, mindset. But what I may say there is that is a truth.
Yeah.
Until. And the until bit is until we receive an intervention. And that intervention might be new information, new skill, new resources. So for example, I can't memorize more than 10 things in order. So if I wanted to memorize a shopping list or telephone numbers or, I don't know, foreign words, I've got no chance. And I won't be able to do it in order unless I have a new strategy, a new resource. And that new resource is, for example, mnemonics, the ability or the skills to memorize things.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I can do that. So when we actually talk about mindset, what we really need in order to address the mindset are interventions. And this is where the use of others is so vital. I can give you an example, Gordon, of where you've helped with my mindset. And that is, I left school with a handful of GCSEs and not much more. I wouldn't class myself as a high achiever, far from it. In fact, I actually didn't think I could learn when I left school. And my results were
Confirmed
the
that.
evidence to support.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then what happened is over the years, I observed, I observed you, Gordon, um, studying in your own time. You were studying because one, you wanted to, or two, because you thought it may come in useful for the job. And the subjects you were studying weren't lightweight. They were computer coding languages. They were foreign languages. And I remember thinking at the time, there is nobody telling this guy to study. He's doing it because he wants to. And so what that did for me was that then got me thinking about my own capacity in terms of learning. And so I modeled you. I didn't see learning as almost a chore, something
Yeah.
that I had to do because I had to go to school and I had to learn. Now I'm learning because I want to. And as a result of that intervention, I went on to complete 3 diplomas, an honours degree, my NLP masters and trainers, and all the other bits and pieces that I've done along the way, with no query around my ability to learn. Now, had I not observed you doing that, and with your support and the support of others, I may have been stuck with that, in brackets, loose term, mindset. So now we can see where using an external or modeling an external can be particularly useful.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know what it was that got me started on that. I think it was, I've always been a great believer that learning is a great habit to develop, and part of that obviously I think comes from from my dad who taught me a lot of mathematics from an early age. And what I found was that I could learn things quickly, and having that knowledge was allowed me to be able to advance. And then the other thing that really struck me was when I was at university, the number one thing I took away from university was that even though I did a degree in mathematics, and you would think there'd be something massively valuable out of that, the most valuable thing I learned was that there's a thing called a reference library. And in the reference library is pretty much the answer to every question that's ever been asked. And it's far easier to go and learn from somebody who's already solved that problem and apply their solution than it is to actually solve problems yourself. So that was as I said, that was like my biggest insight from going to university. But that actually then gave me that habit to, if I've got a problem, and especially now with the internet, to just go and Google and find out somebody who's already solved a problem, that you can then leverage that to go and look and try and achieve success yourself. And sometimes, what I found with some things is that there's more than one way to skin a cat. And sometimes the way I'm being shown to skin a cat isn't one that resonates with me. And if I can actually go and look at what the other solutions are available, I might find something that actually fits better with my thinking, or something where I think, well, yeah, I can do that, and then give it a shot with a positive mindset.
Excellent. You know, I really liked what you've just said there, Gordon, and it wasn't anything to do with skinning cats, but you resource from somebody who has already solved the problem rather than trying to solve it yourself.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
in NLP, actually, in NLP, when it comes to NLP training and coaching and delivery, we actually use proven techniques, proven models, and model on success. So I always like to refer to one of the guys who's very well referenced in the matter of hypnosis, a chap called Dr. Milton Erickson, who says, well, it doesn't really matter what therapy you use as long as it works. So when you've got models or techniques that work for a specific issue, you've just got to access that model that works.
Yeah, my hero on that approach was Bruce Lee. It doesn't matter what technique you're using, if it helps you win the fight, hit him with it. But I think that's a good habit
Yeah,
to
well,
develop.
it's interesting you say that, Gordon, because
Sorry, I lost you there. Say that
he
again.
also said, become it. Yeah, no. One of the comment that Bruce Lee is attributed to, and I think there's some video somewhere of him saying this. And that is, there is no point devoting your life to becoming a master in a single martial art.
Yeah.
So you have to use many and improvise, being present in the fight and improvising using one or a combination of different strategies. And in fact, when it comes to coaching, you can learn what I consider to be fairly straightforward coaching strategies, such as the GROW model, which is, what is the goal your coach is trying to achieve, what results are looking for with options, and, by wins or whatever. But the reality is that you need more than one strategy, because if that model doesn't work for your client, ideally you should have a quiver full of different arrows for solving that particular client issue. This is why it's so useful to not just learn one coaching strategy, but many.
So I think so.
I'll go.
Given that we're talking about mindset, I think that's really interesting, because I think if you've got only one strategy, it actually doesn't give you the opportunity to be flexible, try different things. And I think when you're stuck with a problem and you've only got, if you've only got a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and if it's not working, it is easy to quit. And I think, if we want to create that, positive mindset, that can do, will do mindset, then I do think we've got to look at opening up the different number of tools and techniques that we use, because the more of those we've got, the more options we're going to have when it comes to facing problems. And one of the things that I do quite well is that sometimes when I'm looking at a problem, if I don't know the solution, I'll actually look at solutions that I do have and then see whether I can convert that problem into a problem that solution will work for. But that requires a kind of different way of thinking to do that. But that comes from the studying and having different strategies and different approaches, and that being flexible and open to different thoughts and ideas. Now, that doesn't mean that for every single problem I come across, I don't get into, I don't suffer like everybody else with overwhelm, procrastination, a lack of positivity, because I am just the same as everybody else. But having those tool sets and that ability to be a little bit more flexible does give me some options when I finally decide to put my shoulder to the wheel, my nose to the grindstone, and give it a go.
You've said a couple of things there that are really really important when it comes to achieving stuff. One of the words was flexibility. This is actually a very, very important word to use when it comes to achieving goals, because if you're not achieving something, it's not because you don't want to. Many of the people that I've worked with, it's not that they didn't want to complete the goal. It's because they don't have the resources. They simply do not have the resources, be it time, energy, skill. They're lacking whatever that is. And they take it almost as if Yes, yeah, but that might be a truth too. So, for
Yeah,
example, if you go to work and you're working from 8 till 6, let's say, and you're working flat out, there isn't the scope with the amount of work that that person is doing to relax, to be present, to
yeah,
be completely present, which could make a significant difference. The other issue, of course, is that contributes to strain, and prolonged strain leads to the temporary debilitating state that we know as procrastinate or procrastination. Procrastination, I remember writing an article about this to explain it to my clients so I could just send it to them and they could have a read through it before we did some work on this, is procrastination comes from prolonged strain. We've been going quite hard for too long without being able to be present,
mm,
breathing, sitting in the garden, whatever it is for somebody to ground themselves. And procrastination leads to stress. And with stress, you get all the other associated issues, health issues, underperformance, relationship issues, monetary issues. The list is endless when we get to that level. The key to avoiding procrastination is to address strain and to have strategies. And in order to enact the strategies, you have to be flexible in your thinking. So flexibility is a great word. I mean, when we talk about the strategies, Gordon, that's almost a podcast in itself.
yeah,
Strategies to avoid strain. Because one of the other words that you mentioned there, which I made a note of, which was overwhelm.
yeah.
And in order to avoid being overwhelmed, we have to have strategies. The ability to say no, the ability to discard, the ability to just dump stuff.
Do you know my favourite strategies for getting out of overwhelm? It's called
Cup of tea.
it's called starting with the forks. And a friend of mine, a mother, told her that when you have a big dinner party and you've got to clean up afterwards and the place is just a complete and utter mess and you've no clue where to start, always always start with the forks. And I said to her, is there a reason why you should start with the forks, anything special? She said no, but it gives you a point of departure. It gets you out of thinking into doing. So if you always start with the thought, you never have to worry about where you're going to start. It's with the forks. And then once you've done the forks, you'll just pick up whatever's next to the forks, the next thing, because you're now in action, you're making progress, you're having a little bit of a win. But if you don't know where you're going to start, you just look at it going, oh my God, this is such a mess. What should I start with? Where should I begin? So
Start with the forks.
Start with the forks. So if you've got a big challenge, you just got to think of something as, well, what would my forks be? What's something that I could do that I could start with here and get it going? Because a lot of times, I say this all the time, is that big successes are an accumulation of small successes. But if you only ever look at the big success and don't start having some of those small successes, you're never going to get out of overwhelm, because you're just going to be looking at, the big goal and feel daunted, overwhelmed by it. It's like when we did the Mount Everest challenge. It sounds daunting, but it starts with going up the equivalent of Mount Everest by going up the stairs in your house. It starts with one flight. So just do one flight. Once you've done one, you can do a second, and then you can do a third. Don't worry about finishing, worry about starting, because the majority of initiatives, I would say, fail because people don't even get to the starting line. So if you can at least start, you've put yourself into the top 50% immediately, because now you're actually doing something. And then if you get a little bit of success, bit of motivation, boom, who knows where it can go.
Entirely agree. Entirely agree. I'll give your listeners. I'll give the listeners a great way in order to have a lousy day. How's that?
I'm sure they'll be.
Dead easy one.
I'll be sure they'll be very happy for that.
They're going to be queuing around the block to get their hands on this little gem. If you want to not get a great deal out of your morning, this is a really simple thing to do. You engage the brain into being reactive, and everything will take care of itself for the rest of your morning, at least, if not the whole day. And the way in order to get your brain to start being reactive rather than proactive is to check your phone first thing in the morning. Spend some time on your mobile phone first thing in the morning and watch how your thoughts react. And then watch how you feel when it comes to actually starting to be proactive with your work. The brain is just reprogrammed. It's fascinating. So if you want to start your day and to get more out of it, keep your phone off. Certainly till you've got the ball rolling with your planning and your planning and your task list for the day.
So there's a good friend of ours, Cliff Moy, and one of the things he always talks about, I think this comes from the army, is make your bed. And he always says that if you get up and you immediately make your bed, it's something that you've ticked off of your to-do list, and it gets you into a positive sense of achievement mind. And by doing that, then you're in a position where, boom, now you can start going forward. Whereas, as you say, if you pick up the phone, watch the news, oh my God, something's burnt down, there's a riot, my favourite actor's died, or whatever. Now you're responding to that early morning stimulus rather than being strategic or following the goals and steps that you want to do. And I certainly know from my own personal experience that I'm much more productive if I get up and the first thing I do is go for a run at 6 a.m. First of all, doing the run is a great for clearing my mind, even if it's only for 30 minutes. But when I come back, that sense of achievement, and it's like I've put a marker down for, I've done something, and now what's the next, what's next on my list to do? Whereas if I sit and I watch breakfast TV or I watch the news from yesterday, then I just end up getting sidetracked and my head full of thoughts that don't really, are not really working with me and can often be working against me.
That's a great strategy. I'm not one for running at 6 a.m.
Well, it's not a question of
maybe 7, maybe 8.
Well, it's not. I'm not suggesting everybody should go running, but if there's some task that you can just every morning, I'm going to get, like Cliff does, I'm going to make the bed. Then once that's done, you just put a marker down of today's going to be a productive day.
Yeah, brilliant. I agree entirely. One of the things that I've shared, which will go on your website, Gordon, it'll certainly be in the coaching groups page.
Yeah.
Is the how to get your day completely fired up. It's a checklist.
And, Phil, let me just stop you there for a second. So just so that everybody knows, Phil's running a coaching group on Facebook. It's KUTA, KUTA, which is knowledge, understanding, targets and action, or kick up the ass, whichever you prefer. And if you just go onto Facebook and look for KUTA, KUTA, you'll be able to find that group. Sorry, Phil, you were saying what you've posted.
Thanks. Yeah, so to get your day started, to get your day start well, shall we? The first is leave your phone alone. And ask the question, who do I need to connect with today? And how can I make a difference? Redesign the day, if needs be in your planning, so that it looks so much more rewarding. It's not about the plan, it's all about the planning.
Yeah.
What will you do to avoid your distractions? One of the key distractions for me is my mobile phone. If I turn my phone on, I'm going to get to hear all the latest news on COVID-19, Black Lives Matter,
Leeds United.
Drawn in. Leeds United. Yeah. To identify the 3 key tasks that we need to do. There are three levels of this: the need to do, should do, nice to do. Typically, we get drawn into nice to do stuff if we haven't prioritized our task list, and then off we go. And because we're already thinking in a proactive way, there is a higher probability that you will take on those more challenging tasks rather than the easy to do ones.
How hard should we be on
We can also
ourselves if we?
include into our daily planning.
How hard should we be on ourselves if we put down 3 tasks and we only do 2 of them? Did you get that question, Phil?
Oh, now that is no, I got it. That is a really great question. I'll explain why, because can you imagine what it might be like for somebody to set goals and achieve every single goal they set out to achieve?
It would feel pretty awesome, I imagine.
Well, the reality is, I don't know.
Yeah.
What I do know is that people who tend to be high achievers are either lucky or they work extremely hard. And when I say lucky, they've won the lottery. They were lucky in that they were born into wealth. And wealth, I don't just mean financial wealth. I mean security wealth.
Yeah.
They're in a place where they can grow without fearing
Emotional,
for the safety.
financial, physical, yeah.
Yeah, emotion. Yeah, exactly. So I think for the rest of us who, we're reasonably lucky, I guess, but still haven't had life gifted to us, we've had to work for it. It is perfectly normal to experience failure, setbacks. Any failure or setback is nothing more than it's a sign that something hasn't been done. If we take that personal, where it's not the right thing to do, it's not us, it's a lack of resources. I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, I decided, well, I came back from America with a blood clot in my leg and I couldn't walk. Blood clots are pretty serious things. I didn't know anything about blood clots until I got one and panicked because I thought, this
Death.
could lead to all kinds of things. Yeah. And whilst I was sitting at home, I saw an advert to take part in Britain's most brutal race. I couldn't even walk to the car without being in huge amounts of pain. So this advert caught my attention. And just to watch it was inspiring. And it was a 268-mile race in winter, in snow, in horrible northern England's weather, south to north along the Pennine, up and down mountains.
Up and down mountains, yeah.
Carrying a rucksack. Yeah. And this thing normally takes 3 or 4 weeks to walk, and you've got a few days to get on with it. So day 1 is 44 miles, day 2 is 64, I think, and the distances don't shrink.
Yeah.
So I signed up to do it. So I signed up to do it.
So why? What made you? What made you?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because I was feeling really down at the time. I was feeling down because I've been very lucky with my health and fitness over the years, and I've never had any significant health-related issues until I got this blood clot. And I felt that I needed something to pull me out of that place I was in, and that is exactly what this did.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it gave me really crystal clear focus. I had 6 months to train for this thing, and I felt 6 months should be okay. I felt I had good determination. I'm an outdoors person, so I had no problems with the navigating at night, the pack, the food, any of that stuff. It was literally just my mobility. So I started training. And I remember after my first month, I managed to get up to about 5 miles, which isn't a 44-mile day.
And if anybody knows, Phil, he's a regular for the Yorkshire Three Peaks, which is 25 miles in anything between 6 to 12 hours. So 5 miles is a little bit below his personal best. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I was struggling badly, and but the thing is, Gordon, I was making progress because I couldn't even walk to the car in January and February
Yeah,
from my front door. I couldn't even walk maybe 20 feet without being in a lot of pain. And so here we are. I started increasing the mileage, and eventually I was doing 50-mile days with a big pack on in great time. So I felt fit. I felt very focused, and I remember standing on the start line, thinking, "Wow, this is unbelievable." You know, the fact that it wasn't that long ago, I was in such a dark place, unable to walk,
yeah.
and here I am at the start of the spine race, about to take part in this ridiculous race. Now the thing is,
So
I didn't finish it.
yeah, but I was just going to say there that there's a couple of things. One is that there's a race that you've entered, but the first success is to actually get to the start line, to use that aspirational goal to change your mindset and to get you start
Yeah,
making steps forward. So to actually just be on the start line from where you were was a huge victory, irrespective of whether you complete it, win it, or don't. Just being able to say I'm ready to roll is a big win.
I would agree with that, because what most people don't see is the amount of training people do in order to get on that start line.
Yeah,
You know, training October, November, December in freezing cold, snowy, you know, 40 miles during the night stuff. You know, that's the level of commitment you've got to be putting in.
yeah.
So I'd done that. And on the day of the race, naivety, um, uh, you know, I remember I opened the boot of my car and I'd prepared well. I had the shoes that I'd been wearing during the training that had served me really well, and I had a brand new pair. A brand new pair of felt shoes. They were winking at me, screaming at me, use me, use me. And like an idiot, I did. And I didn't even get 5 miles without this new pair of shoes. Um,
They're gonna bite.
I ended up with stress fractures, and yeah, well, something happened. I ended up with stress fractures in both feet, and my right foot was in a lot of pain by the time I'd got the first 10 miles in, and I've got 258 miles to go, and I got these stress fractures in the bones in my feet. So I was leaning on my left leg a bit more, and in no time at all, my left knee was badly swollen,
Yeah,
and I ended up having to drop out of the race at the 98. I think it was around 98 miles, something
which
like
is
that.
still an achievement.
So, yeah, I was devastated at the time because of what it meant to me, um, and so the failure issue. So, what we have to do is, at the time, I was very disappointed, but equally, I'm very rational, and I knew exactly what I'd done, and I knew
Yeah.
exactly why I had failed, and it was nothing other than a logistical issue, poor decision making on my part, naivety.
Yeah. So it was nothing to do with the your mindset or your ability to do it. It was just a bad decision at the time. But that's still a great result from 6 months earlier with the problem with your leg, to actually get to the start line and a small mistake. So I think we have to understand sometimes that um, failure is not fail, because you are in a position to be able to go and do that race a second time, and that,
Hmm.
even when we're struggling, we can change our mindset, because we've been talking about some of the things that we can do to change our mindset. We can, we've talked about, being a continual learner, to give yourself different tool sets, different options, different things that you could look to use, so that if you've got some challenges, you've got multiple options. The more options you've got, the more likely it is you're going to see something that you can leverage. We talked about, with the mindset, creating daily habits where you avoid the distractions, get an early win in so that you're running the day rather than the day is running you. And then this one, which I think is interesting, because I do the same. If I'm not, I try to run marathons, and if every now and again I'll just kind of get out of training, and the only way I can get back in is to just put a race in, and give myself an audacious target, which,
Oh, yeah,
which then
yeah.
tells me, right, it's now or never, got to get on this. And I think, whatever it is that motivates you, some people are motivated by success. I mean, for me, a big goal can motivate me and inspire me to go and put the effort in. And as you say, more often than not with these things, people look at the target and they think, oh, I can't do that. But there's a lot of prep that you've got to be able to go through and do. That if you don't do that, you're not going to be successful. But that setting the bold goal is what can get you to do that prep, and start small, do the 5 miles. I mean, you tell somebody I'm going to do a 278-mile race and I've just broke the 5-mile barrier. You're ecstatic because you know that that's another milestone on the journey to 278 miles, and other people are thinking, he's 273 miles short of the target, because they're looking at it from the finish line to where they are rather than looking at the progress they're making, which motivates and inspires us to keep going. So I think those are some great.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I entirely agree. I remember I'm going to use the term you used earlier, which was negative mindset.
Yeah.
When I finished my diploma course, and on the diploma course that I did, there were only a handful of us asked if we wanted to go on to do the degree program. Now, for somebody who had a negative mindset around his ability to learn, I was one of those three. So you can imagine how I felt when I was asked to go and do a degree program. And interestingly enough, I did do that. And at that point, I had no doubt about my ability to learn. Once I'd learned how to learn, I'd learned how to learn.
I think when we talk about mindset, I think what's quite interesting, because it's probably worth mentioning now that you did the spine race, and that's an awesome event, and you've actually talked me into doing the SAS qualifying event in December, where I'm going to be doing 15 miles up and down a mountain. And we talk about mindset, and when we look at something like that, I mean, can I walk 15 miles? Yeah. Can I walk up and down a mountain? Yeah, with a little bit of training. Can I do that in December, in winter? And while I'm thinking about it, you just said to me, Gordon, you can do that. And that just completely set my mindset of, right, now I can do it. It's a question of doing the prep work. And when we've got that mindset of, I can do it, and I'm not saying that I'm going to do it in a great time or that I'll be the fastest ever or win my age group, because that's not necessarily my goal and objective. My objective is to complete it. But if we can have that, if we can start to develop that mindset that before we start we're confident we're going to be successful, it can make all of the difference in the world, because a lot of success requires a lot of effort. We're going to face difficulty and hardship along the way, but if we've got that positive mindset and that self-belief that we will be successful, it can help us go through when the going gets tough and we face challenges. We say that when the going gets tough, the tough get going. It's probably the mentally tough get going is the real answer to that.
We spoke earlier about this whole concept of mindset, and I said that what we really need is, I don't believe the mind is ever set.
Yeah.
What we have strategies.
Yeah.
And we believe that the strategy that we're running is the only strategy, and therefore my strategy's not working, I can't do it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that actually, if we have an alternative strategy,
Change the
then
strategy.
there is a, yeah. Now, let's not mistake wishful thinking for strategy. I want to
Yeah.
beat Usain Bolt isn't going to happen.
No.
So now, well, it is, as long as I have a different strategy that involves me going quicker than him, i.e., I'm on a motorbike.
Yeah.
And it's allowed in the rules.
Yeah.
So the reality is sometimes we have to be rational. But the whole point about the interventions are so important. I would not have achieved what I've achieved from an educational perspective
Sorry, Phil.
had I not
Could you
observed and modelled you.
Phil? Can you
I
just
wouldn't have
repeat that
achieved
because
many.
there was a little bit of interference online. Could you just repeat that last piece?
Yeah. So what we're saying here is that interventions are really important. I wouldn't have achieved what I had achieved educationally had I not observed and modelled you when I was when I was in my teens, and you as an adult, you were studying, and it inspired me. There was something in what you were doing which was voluntary, and I remember observing that. And at an unconscious level, I was thinking, "Wow, that's a good thing to do." I see learning as a chore. I see
Yeah.
learning as I have to do this. Whereas here's this guy, he's learning in his own way and he seems to be enjoying it and he's learning loads. And how clever is he? Why can't I do that? So it's a great thing to do. Now, when we talk about achieving goals, you and I can set big, audacious goals, but what about everybody else? They may not be able to because of the limitations that they have got up here between their ears.
Yeah.
And rather than those goals being set by others, they've got to set them because they have a
Oh
belief
God.
in
Yeah.
doing it.
Absolutely. Set your own goals.
But we can inspire them.
Yeah.
And when we're with each other, co-coaching groups work. A coachee relationship can work really well. Friends, family. One of the things that's happened in our society is the decline of traditional family, where family get round, they support each other, they inspire each other, they give each other that foundation. And if the family can't do that, then our tribes can, the people around us.
So
And this is why it's so important to have good people around you.
So when I did the marathon, my decision was I'm going to run a marathon, and over the course of 3 or 4 years, I've run multiple. But not only that, but a dozen people have done it with me because they've seen me do it and they thought if he can do it, I can do it. And once you get into that collaborative environment where everybody's looking at each other, looking to push and pull each other along, that can really. And I agree with you that we've got to have that support structure that either one sets the example for us or two encourages us to give it a shot. Because I think when we can see that, what does that say? Two mins. Yeah, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so we're gonna have to keep it short. But I do think that collaborative nature. So one of the things I would tell people now is that go to Facebook, log into Phil's group, Tutor group, sign up, because what you'll find in there is people that will encourage you. You can get some coaching if you want it, but also you will be encouraged by other people what they're doing in terms of the results that they're trying to achieve, and that will inspire you. And we can all set our own goals. We don't all have to be, trying to do the spine race or trying to climb Mount Everest. We can set bold, audacious goals that will be bold for us. And if we can do that, and we can start to make small progress towards that goal, then who knows what's possible with the right tools that allow you to set your mind on achieving the goal. You've got a good possibility of achieving it. So Phil, before we go, any last minute thoughts?
I think try and achieve everything in this life on our own. We're, we're, we may possibly be able to do that, but there was a statement by a guy called Kurt Hahn. Kurt Hahn is one of the founding members of the Outward Bound, the outdoor education organization, known for its inspiring programs. And Kurt Hahn said, "We are all capable of more if only we know how," or words to that effect. That comment has been attributed to Kurt Hahn. And I'm a big believer in that. I do believe that we are capable of more if only we know how. Knowing how is about learning.
Yeah.
It's to recognize that actually, whilst you may not have a positive mindset, that is only a collection of strategies and resources. And you may not have them, but others may.
Yeah.
And if you reach out to others through coaching, through mentoring, through just a peer-to-peer coaching type group, the one we've set up, or even getting involved with the new coaching program which you're about to launch, Gordon,
Yeah.
something along those lines will genuinely increase the probability of success in any one of the many areas of this life.
I completely agree. And I always tell people that when I was doing the marathon, one of the things that I found was the Ricardo Abad, who ran 607 marathons in 607 days. And when I saw that he'd done that, all those people were telling me, "You'll never do one." I thought, this guy's done 607. 607 in one day. We can all do more. That doesn't mean that we should all run out and sign up to do 608 marathons, but it does mean we can all do a little bit more than we think if we'll just open ourselves up to it, learn a few new tips and strategies, and then find that, generate a little bit of belief, and then get to the start line and give it a shot.
Brilliant.
Okay, so we're just about to wrap up now. If you want to find out more about Phil, go to his website, which is www.kuta.co.uk. That's KUTA.co.uk. Or if you want to find out more about myself, go to my website, www.gordontreadgold.com. And thanks for listening. If you've liked this webinar, please feel free to share it. Leave a comment below, and until next time, get that mindset, focus on your goals, and go for it.
Well done, Gordon.